the cold, unforgiving steel of the gun barrel pressed into the soft skin beneath Zara Adebayo's jaw, tilting her head back until all she could see were the dark, burning coals of her husband's eyes. Minjun Seong's body was a cage of solid muscle and rage, pinning her against the cool, polished granite wall of his Hanok mansion. The coppery scent of his blood, her doing, from the slap she'd landed moments ago, filled the air, a drop of it warm against her bare shoulder. "You never fucking listen," Minjun growled, his voice a low, dangerous thunder that vibrated through her. His free hand tangled in the tight coils of her hair, not enough to hurt, but enough to assert a dominance she refused to acknowledge. "I told you not to leave. I told you it wasn't safe. And I told you," she hissed, arching her back, grinding against him just to feel the hard proof of his desire, just to shatter his icy control, "that I'm not your prisoner." The gun traced a path of cold metal down her spine, a stark contrast to the burning skin beneath her dress. "You're my wife." "Same thing, isn't it?" she challenged, her breath catching as he moved with a speed that still stunned her. He spun her around, slamming her back against the wall. The gun was now a permanent fixture under her chin again. His eyes were black with a fury so profound it should have terrified her. But it was the something else swimming in that darkness, a raw, desperate hunger, that made her thighs clench with a traitorous heat. 3 months. 3 months of this violent dance where they circled each other like wounded predators, wanting to destroy each other, wanting to devour each other whole. "I should kill you," he whispered, the words a lethal caress. His thumb, surprisingly gentle, brushed over her bottom lip. "You're going to get yourself killed anyway with your stubbornness. Then do it." Her voice was steady, a stark contrast to the storm inside her. She opened her mouth, taking the pad of his thumb in, sucking gently, her eyes locked on his. She watched it, the exact moment his control fractured, a splintering in his gaze. "Or fuck me. But make a choice, dear Mafia husband, because I'm tired of this game." The gun clattered to the hardwood floor. Then Minjun's mouth crashed into hers. It was not a kiss of love or tenderness. It was all teeth and rage and desperate, starving hunger. She bit his already split lip harder, tasting the iron tang of his blood, and he groaned into her mouth like she was killing him, his hands gripping her hips hard enough to bruise. "I hate you," she gasped against his lips as his hands hiked up her dress. "I hate you more," he growled, lifting her against the wall, her legs wrapping around his waist of their own volition. But their bodies had never gotten the memo about the hatred. "Hey, honey hearts. Welcome to Afrokorean cinema. This is only my second video, and I'm so excited to share it with you. If you love captivating stories, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones." To understand how a headstrong Nigerian architect brought Seoul's most dangerous mafia don to his knees, you have to rewind 3 months. The limousine smelled like expensive leather and impending doom. Zara sat stiffly across from her father, Tund Adebayo, watching the vibrant chaos of Lagos disappear through tinted windows. "Pack your things. You're getting married. The family needs this." His voice had been hollow, his eyes avoiding hers just hours before. "He's powerful," Tund had said, wringing his hands. "The Seongpa controls the ports, the trade. This alliance will save us." "You mean selling me will save you?" Zara's voice had been deadly calm, belying the tempest within. She held up a manicured hand. "Let's call this what it is, Daddy. You fucked up. Got in debt with the wrong people, and now you're trading your daughter like a prime heifer." The wedding happened 2 days later in Seoul. No time to run. No time to plan an escape. 200 guests she didn't know watched her walk down a minimalist aisle in a dress she hadn't chosen toward a man she'd never met. Minjun Seong looked like a god's apology for creating the devil. He was a devastating beauty wrapped in impeccably tailored black sangori, his face all sharp angles and cold elegance. But his eyes were the deadliest part of him. Dark, ancient, and filled with a stillness that spoke of too much death, his hands that rested calmly at his sides had likely caused most of it. He didn't smile when she reached him. Didn't take her hand. He just looked at her with those chillingly calm eyes, as if calculating her net worth, her durability, her breaking point. The kiss was perfunctory. His lips, soft yet unyielding, barely brushed hers before pulling away, leaving her cold. At the reception, amidst the clinking glasses and false smiles, he leaned close. His cologne, something woody and expensive, wrapped around her, making her stomach flip traitorously. "Let me be clear about our arrangement, Mrs. Seong," he said in flawless English, his accent a faint, melodic undertone. "You will live in my home. You will attend events as my armpiece. You will play the part of my devoted wife in public. In private, you will stay out of my way. I won't touch you. You won't warm my bed. Understood?" The dismissal in his voice, the sheer audacity, made her burn with a fury so pure it felt like clarity. "Crystal clear," she replied, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Though I should warn you, I don't follow orders well." For the first time, something flickered in his deadened expression, a spark of interest, of challenge. "You'll follow mine. We'll see about that." The first week, she tested every boundary like an architect surveying a new, gilded prison. His home was a stunning, ultramodern hammock nestled in the Seoul hills, a beautiful contradiction of traditional sweeping roofs and impenetrable security. She was given her own wing, far from his. She wandered the halls at all hours, rearranged the stark, perfect placement of his priceless celadone vases, played Burna Boy and Asaki at a volume that made the shoji screens vibrate during his hushed, serious business calls. Each small rebellion was met with a clenched jaw, a tightened fist, a look from across the room that promised consequences he never delivered. But it was the second week when she discovered his fatal flaw. She'd been walking from the shower to her room, a towel wrapped snugly around her, her skin still damp. As she passed his study, the towel's knot slipped. Not completely, just enough to reveal the elegant slope of her shoulder, the swell of her breast, the long, powerful line of her thigh. She could have fixed it immediately, but she didn't. Minjun was coming out of his study, probably to tell her to turn her music down again. He froze. His eyes, those usually impassive pools, darkened, tracking a single droplet of water as it rolled down her dark skin, over her collarbone, and disappeared into the terry cloth. His hands fisted at his sides, so hard his knuckles turned bone-white. "Cover yourself," he ordered, his voice rough, stripped of its usual control. She adjusted the towel slowly, deliberately, her eyes never leaving his. "It's my house, too, isn't it?" she asked, her voice a purr. "Or are you going to give me a dress code now, Jajia?" She took a step closer, close enough that he could surely see the shape of her body through the damp fabric. "Afraid you might actually want your wife?" He turned and strode back into his study, slamming the door shut. But she heard it, the distinct click of the lock, a sharp, ragged intake of breath, followed by a low, tortured groan. 20 minutes later, the game changed forever. After that, her seduction became a deliberate, calculated siege. Every morning, she did Yoruba dance stretches in the main living area, her body a fluid, captivating spectacle in nothing but a sports bra and shorts that left little to the imagination. She'd bend and stretch, feeling the heat of his gaze from the kitchen, watching him grip his ceramic coffee cup so tightly she was surprised it didn't shatter. She started wearing his crisp, white dress shirts, the cuffs falling past her hands, the fabric smelling of his cedarwood cologne. She'd apply shea butter to her legs slowly, methodically, while sitting on the couch during his conference calls. And Minjun, he was unraveling. She caught him once, late at night, standing in her doorway while she pretended to sleep. He stood there for a full 10 minutes, a silent, brooding shadow, just watching the steady rhythm of her breathing before disappearing. Then she heard his shower turn on, heard the muffled, guttural moans that came after, heard her name on his lips like a curse, like a prayer. After the third week, his control started to crack, visibly. "You're not leaving the house dressed like that," he said one evening, his large frame blocking the grand front door. She was wearing a crimson dress, the neckline a deep plunge, the slit climbing daringly high on her thigh. "Watch me," she said, and tried to push past him. He moved with a predator's grace, catching her wrists and pinning her against the heavy wood, his arms caging her in. I said no. And I said, watch me. She peered up at him through her lashes, her heart hammering against her ribs. Unless you're planning to physically stop me, don't push me, Zara. Why? Her freed hand trailed down the front of his silk shirt, feeling the frantic, galloping rhythm of his heart beneath her palm. Afraid you might break that precious vow of yours? Afraid you might actually touch your wife? You have no idea what you're playing with, he growled, his breath hot against her face. Then show me. He leaned down until his lips brushed the shell of her ear, his voice a dark, sinful promise. If I touch you, I won't stop. I'll bend you over the nearest surface and fuck you until you can't remember your own name. I'll mark every inch of this beautiful skin so everyone knows who you belong to. I'll ruin you for any other man. Is that what you want? Her breath hitched, a liquid heat pooling low in her belly. Maybe. He gazed at her, his eyes searching hers, the battle within him raging visibly. Zara waited with bated breath, her entire body tingling with anticipation. For a heart-stopping moment, she thought he would finally break, that his mouth would crash down on hers. But he pushed away from the door, his hands trembling. Go. He bit out, the words strained. Wear whatever you want. Get yourself killed for all I care. Frustration, hot and sharp, coiled within her. She stomped out, but the victory felt hollow. When she returned later that night, laughing on the phone with a friend from Lagos, he was waiting for her in the dark, a demon summoned by her defiance. Did you have fun? His voice was deceptively calm, a thin veneer over a volcano. Plenty, she answered, kicking off her heels, a deliberate motion that hiked her dress higher. The ambassador's son is quite charming. He was very interested in my designs. Something cracked. A crystal tumbler in his hand. Shards of glass and amber liquid joined the blood now dripping from his palm onto the pristine white rug. You're bleeding, she gasped, moving toward him instinctively. Stay there. But his voice broke on the words. She ignored him, as she always did, and took his hand, examining the cuts. Is this you being jealous? I don't get jealous, he muttered, his body rigid. Liar. She looked up at him, pressing a clean cloth to his palm. You're jealous that another man made me laugh. That another man might have touched me. He whipped his head toward her then, his eyes blazing with a possessive fire that stole her breath. Did he? The question was sharp, dangerous. Did he touch you? Would it matter if he did? He backed her against the counter, his bloody hand braced beside her head, caging her. Answer. Me. A slow, triumphant smile spread across Zara's lips. No, he didn't touch me. She tilted her head, a predator cornering her prey. But you want to, don't you? You want to touch me so badly, it's driving you insane. You don't know what I want. I know you touch yourself thinking about me. The words hung between them, a loaded gun. I know you grow my name in the shower when you fuck your fist. I know you stand outside my door at night like a starving man outside a feast. So why are you starving when I'm ready to feed you? His control shattered. He kissed her then, not with the rage she expected, but with a desperate, aching hunger that melted her bones. His hands tangled in her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss, and she moaned into his mouth, finally getting what she'd been chasing. Her hands flew to his belt, her fingers fumbling with the cold leather. But just as she felt the buckle give, he tore his mouth from hers, pushing away from her, his chest heaving. No, he panted, running a bloody hand through his hair. Not like this. I'm not in control. The rejection was a physical blow, a slap of cold reality. Without thinking, her hand flew out, connecting with his cheek with a sharp crack, hard enough to split his lip. Coward. He caught her wrist in an iron grip, yanking her against him so she could feel the hard, throbbing evidence of his desire. Careful, wife. I'm trying to be honorable. I don't want you to be honorable, she spat, her eyes blazing. I want you to keep your promise. What promise? The one about fucking me until I can't walk. For 4 days after that, Zara went nuclear. She brought men home, business associates, artists, anyone who would make Minjun's eye twitch. She never let them pass the foyer, but he didn't know that. She laughed too loud, danced too close, made sure he could see everything from his study. Then she stopped wearing underwear. It was a small rebellion, but devastatingly effective. The silk trousers, the thin sundresses. He noticed. Oh, he noticed. His eyes would darken, tracking her movements, his jaw tightening when she bent over to pick something up, when she stretched, when she sat with her legs curled under her. One evening, she was in the gourmet kitchen, attempting to cook jollof rice and failing spectacularly. But that wasn't the point. She was wearing one of his white dress shirts, the tails hitting her mid-thigh, and absolutely nothing else. She was humming to herself when she felt him behind her, his presence a palpable heat against her back. "What are you doing?" His voice was strained, tight. "Making dinner." "You can't cook." "I can learn." She turned, spatula in hand, the shirt gaping open to reveal a tantalizing glimpse of her curves. "Not wearing what?" His eyes dropped to where the shirt ended, then snapped back up to her face, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "This has to stop." "What has to stop?" "This." He gestured violently between them. "This game you're playing." "I'm not playing anything." She turned back to the stove, a deliberate dismissal. "I'm just living my life. If you have a problem with it." He spun her around, pressing her against the cold marble countertop. "You're trying to seduce me. Is it working?" she whispered, her breath catching. "You know it is." His hands gripped the counter on either side of her, his knuckles white. "Every fucking day. Walking around here like you don't know what you do to me. Like you don't know I'm going insane. Then do something about it." "I can't." "Why?" "Because you—" He stopped, his jaw clenching so hard she thought he might break a tooth. "Because if I start, I'll never stop. I'll become the monster everyone thinks I am." "Maybe I want the monster." He laughed, a dark, bitter sound. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Then show me." For a heart-stopping moment, she thought he would. His hand rose to her throat, his thumb pressing gently against her frantic pulse. His other hand gripped her hip, his fingers digging into her flesh hard enough to leave bruises. She could feel him, hard and insistent against her stomach. She could see the raw, unchecked lust in his eyes, the promise of everything he'd threatened. Then his phone rang, the shrill tone cutting through the thick tension. "Business. Always fucking business." He stepped away, answering in rapid, sharp Korean, but his eyes never left hers. And in them, she saw it, not a refusal, but a promise. That night, she heard him in his bathroom again, the shower running, the low, guttural groans, the sound of his fist hitting the tile. She pressed her thighs together, her own hand sliding between her legs, matching his rhythm through the wall, her own silent moans echoing his. They were both losing this war of attrition. The breaking point came the next night. She'd gone to a gallery opening for a rising Korean artist, despite his explicit orders to stay home. There had been threats, he said. Danger, he said. She'd gone anyway, wearing the emerald green dress that made his eyes go black, the one with the open back and the slit that promised paradise. When she came home, the hammock was dark and silent, the moon casting long, eerie shadows through the paper screens. "You never fucking listen." She turned to find him stepping out of the shadows, and for the first time since their marriage, a genuine flicker of fear went through her. Not of violence, but of the final, absolute promise in his eyes. "I told you not to go. You're not my father. I'm your husband. Same difference." He moved faster than she could track, backing her against the wall. "Do you have any idea what could have happened to you tonight?" But it didn't. She shot back, her chin lifted in defiance. That was when she noticed the gun in his hand, held loosely at his side. "Do you know how many people I had to deal with tonight to keep you safe? Why are you so fucking stubborn? I should lock you in this house and throw away the key." That's when she slapped him. Hard. Hard enough to split his lip for the second time. The cold, unforgiving steel of the gun barrel pressed into the soft skin beneath Zara Adebayo's jaw. And we are back where we began. The gun was on the floor. His mouth was on hers, his taste a mix of blood and desperation. "I hate you," she gasped as he hiked her dress up, his hands rough and possessive on her bare skin. "I hate you more," he growled, lifting her against the wall, her legs locking around his waist. But their bodies had never gotten the memo about the hatred. When he finally entered her, it was with a groan that sounded like it was torn from his soul. The stretch, the fullness, the way he whispered her name, Zara, was everything she didn't know she needed. "More," she gasped, her nails raking down the taut muscles of his back. "Be polite, wifey." Minjun rasped against her neck, his hips setting a relentless, punishing rhythm. "Beg for it. More, please." "So greedy," he growled, but he gave her what she wanted, driving into her harder, deeper, until the world dissolved into a haze of sensation and she was screaming his name, her body shattering around his. They didn't leave his room for hours. Every position, every surface, every filthy promise he'd ever whispered became a reality. When the first light of dawn broke through the shoji screens, she was covered in a map of bruises and bite marks, her body aching in the most delicious ways. "Mine," he murmured, his fingers tracing a dark mark on the sensitive skin of her neck. "Yours," she agreed, her voice hoarse. Then she leaned forward and bit his shoulder, hard enough to leave her own claiming mark. "And you're mine. Always." But always was never calm when you were married to a Mafia don. Their peace was shattered 3 days later by the sound of gunfire. The attack came at a charity gala for a new cultural center Zara had designed. One moment, she was discussing the fusion of Hanok and Afro-modernist architecture with a city official. The next, the world exploded in a cacophony of shattering glass and screams. A heavy body slammed into her, driving her to the floor as gunfire erupted. It was Minjun, his body a shield, his own gun drawn and returning fire with terrifying precision over her head. "Don't move," he growled into her ear, his voice the only solid thing in a world gone mad. She heard the sickening thuds of bodies hitting the floor, the shouts in Korean, the final, deafening silence that was somehow worse. When he finally pulled her up, his tuxedo was spattered with blood that wasn't his. The ballroom was a wreckage, and his men were already discreetly handling the fallen attackers. In the armored car ride home, he held her, his grip possessive and shaking with a residual, violent energy. "Your cousin," she stated quietly, the pieces clicking into place.
"Jonah."
"He wanted me dead." Minjun nodded, his fury a living entity in the confined space. "He thinks you make me weak. In our world, any perceived weakness must be eliminated from the syndicate." Zara turned in his arms, her gaze steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her.
"Dot-e."
"Make you weak?" "Yes." The admission was stark, raw. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing over her cheekbone with a tenderness that belied the violence of minutes before. "And I would choose this weakness over any strength. I would burn the entire syndicate to the ground for you. But what if he or others come for us again?"
"No."
The word was final.
"Deadly."
"He won't." She understood without him saying another word. Her husband, the man who had just whispered endearments into her skin, was also Seoul's most dangerous Mafia don. Jun-ho was already dead. "Does that frighten you?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. "That I would kill my own blood for you?"
"No."
She rose on her toes, pressing her forehead to his. "It should, but it doesn't." "Why?" "Because I'd do the same for you." He kissed her then, soft and desperate, his lips tasting of blood and a future they would have to claw from the jaws of their world. Back at the Hanok, the tension had shifted. The war between them was over, replaced by a different, more potent kind of fire. His hand was a brand on her thigh in the car, his touch reigniting the embers that never truly died. By the time they crossed the threshold, she was already climbing into his lap in the foyer, her torn dress hiked up, his hands everywhere, tearing at the remaining fabric. Someone could see. She gasped as he kissed a hot path down her throat, his teeth scraping her pulse point. Let them, he rasped, his voice thick with need. Let everyone know you're mine. Let them see the Dawn is owned by his wife. They barely made it to the bedroom this time, a tangle of limbs and desperate hands. This coupling was different, not a battle for dominance, but a fierce, united claiming. It was a reaffirmation of life after facing death, a physical promise of the alliance they had forged in hatred and sealed in blood. I love you, she gasped as she shattered around him, the words torn from a place deeper than defiance, deeper than strategy. The confession shocked them both. He stilled inside her, pulling back to look at her, his eyes wide, vulnerable. Say it again. I love you, Minjun. My monster. My enemy. My husband. A shudder racked his powerful frame. I love you, too, he whispered against her lips, the words a sacred vow. More than my empire. More than my life. More than my own soul. Prove it. His smile was wicked, a glimpse of the unshackled monster she had demanded. Every day. For the rest of our lives. Later, as dawn broke, painting the Seoul skyline in hues of rose and gold, they stood on the veranda, wrapped in silence and each other. The city he ruled sprawled beneath them. Any regrets? Minjun asked, his arms a secure band around her waist. Just one. She felt his body tense and smiled. I should have slapped you harder that first time. Maybe we would have figured this out sooner. His laugh was rich, dark, and free, the sound echoing in the morning air. It was everything she loved about him. You can slap me anytime you want, wife. Careful. I might take you up on that. I'm counting on it. She turned his arms, the morning sun gilding her dark skin. So, what now?
Now.
He lifted her effortlessly onto the wide wooden railing, stepping between her thighs, his hands pushing the silk of her robe aside. Now I'm going to fuck my wife on this balcony where all of Seoul can see who you belong to. Minjun. Anyone could. That's the point. His hands were already on her, knowing and possessive. Let them see. Let them know that the stubborn woman who never listens, who drives me insane, who nearly gets herself killed daily, let them know she's mine. She is my heart, my only weakness and my greatest strength. You're insane. You made me this way, he countered, his mouth finding the sensitive spot on her neck. And you wanted me to ruin you. You wanted me to fuck you until you couldn't walk. Minjun. His name was a plea and a command.
Sure.
Give me permission, he commanded, his fingers already working a devilish magic. You are ready for me. I can feel it. Say yes, Zara. Yes. As he claimed her there, high above the waking city, Zara let her head fall back, the world narrowing to the feel of him, the scent of him, the sound of his ragged breaths in her ear. She thought of the brutal, strange journey that had brought them here, an arranged marriage between enemies, 3 months of violent foreplay disguised as hatred, and a love born from stubbornness, spit, and the unlikeliest of surrenders. She had married the devil himself, believing it was a life sentence. Instead, she had found a man who would burn the world for her. And she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she would happily wield the gasoline and matches for him. The world was his mouth on hers, his hands digging into her hips as he moved inside her on the veranda. The cold morning air bit at her exposed skin, a sharp contrast to the burning heat of him. This was no gentle lovemaking. It was a claiming, a branding. Let them see, he growled against her throat, his voice raw. Let all of Seoul see who you belong to. She threw her head back, a moan ripped from her chest. You're insane. You made me this way, he snarled, driving into her harder, deeper, pushing her toward the edge. You wanted the monster. You got him. When they finally stumbled back inside, their bodies were slick with sweat and the morning chill. He didn't let her go. He backed her against the nearest wall, his eyes black with a hunger that was far from sated. Again, he demanded, his voice a dark caress. Minjun. His hand clamped over her mouth, his other hand hiking up her robe. I said, again. You don't get to tell me no. Not after what you just let me do to you out there. You're mine. Every part of you. And she was. In that moment, with his body pinning hers and the memory of his possession still throbbing between her legs, she was utterly his. She nodded, her eyes wide, a fresh wave of desire pooling in her belly. For 3 days, it was like this. A fever dream of skin and whispered threats that sounded like prayers. He was insatiable. On the kitchen counter, bent over his desk, pressed against the glass of the floor-to-ceiling windows as the city lights twinkled below. He was the Mafia Don, and she was his ultimate conquest, his most prized possession. And she loved every brutal, delicious second of it. He was in his study, and she was deliberately wearing one of his dress shirts, the sleeves rolled up, smelling like him. She was bending over to pick up a pencil, knowing he was watching from his desk. "Come here," his voice cut through the silence, low and commanding. She straightened up, a slow smile playing on her lips. "Busy." His eyes darkened. "I won't ask again, Zara." "Or what?" she challenged, her heart hammering. This was the dance. This was the game they both craved. He stood up, his movements lethally smooth. "Or I'll tie you to this desk and fuck you until you forget how to speak."
Now. Come.
"Here." A shiver of pure anticipation racked her body. She walked to him, her steps slow, deliberate. When she was within reach, he grabbed her, pulling her onto his lap. His hand slid up her thigh, under the shirt. "You're not wearing anything," he murmured, his fingers finding her already wet for him. "Problem?" she breathed, her head falling back against his shoulder. "You're a temptation I have no intention of resisting." His phone buzzed on the desk. Business. He ignored it, his focus entirely on the feel of her. "You're going to be the death of me. Promise." He laughed, a dark, sinful sound, and then his mouth was on her neck, his teeth scraping her skin as his fingers worked her into a frenzy right there in his chair. The phone kept buzzing, a persistent, ignored plea from the outside world. Later, sated and tangled in his sheets, he traced the marks on her skin. "Mine," he said, the word a permanent fixture in their new language. "Yours," she agreed. But the outside world was a patient enemy. The intrusion came that evening. Minjun's right-hand man, Park, entered without his usual calm. He bowed, his face tense. "A problem. The Adebayo account. The numbers we were given, they were lies. The company is bankrupt. The deal is rotten." The air in the room went cold. Minjun slowly sat up, the lover vanishing, replaced by the dawn. His eyes, which had been soft on her skin, were now chips of black ice. "Explain." "The initial due diligence was faked. The assets don't exist. We were deceived." Minjun's gaze slid to Zara. The look wasn't angry. It was worse. It was calculating. The trust that had begun to bloom between them withered and died in an instant. "Is that so?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet. He stood, pulling on his pants, his back to her. "Get out, Park." The door clicked shut. The silence that followed was heavier than any threat. Zara sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "Minjun." He turned. The raw, sexual energy was gone, replaced by a cold, murderous fury. "You knew." It wasn't a question. "Knew what?" She shot back, her own temper flaring. "That my father is a desperate man?" "Yes. I told you that from the beginning." "You didn't tell me he was a liar who sold me a corpse," he roared, slamming his fist on the dresser, making the wood splinter. "The alliance was a sham. Your value in this marriage was a fiction." The words were a slap. "My value? Is that all I am to you? A balance sheet?" "That is what you were sold as," he snarled, advancing on her. He loomed over the bed, a predator. "I took you, I protected you, I put my fucking neck on the line for you, for a lie. It makes me question everything. It makes me question if this," he gestured between their naked bodies, "was just another one of your manipulations." Rage, hot and blinding, consumed her. She launched herself from the bed, not caring that she was naked. "Go to hell. You think I faked that? You think I can fake the way I come for you? You arrogant bastard. Can't you?" He grabbed her arms, his grip bruising. You've been playing me since the moment you got here. Why should this be any different? She struggled against him, her nails digging into his wrists. Let me go. Or what? He mocked, pulling her flush against him. You'll slap me again?
Do it.
Give me a reason to treat you like the enemy you are. Their chests were heaving, their breath mingling in the charged space between them. Hatred and desire were a twisted, inseparable knot in her gut. His eyes dropped to her mouth, and she saw the conflict there, the need to punish her and the need to devour her. The door flew open without a knock. Park stood there, his face ashen, holding out a tablet. He didn't bother with apologies.
Dzwonię k nim.
You need to see this. Now. Minjun didn't release her. What is it? It's not just the money. Park's voice was tight. We just intercepted a communication. A deal. Zara Adebayo. He's not just bankrupt. He made a backup plan. Minjun finally let her go, snatching the tablet. Zara stood frozen, her blood running cold. He's brokering a new alliance, Park said, his words dropping like stones. With the Matsudakai, the Japanese syndicate. Minjun's most hated, most brutal rivals. Minjun's head snapped up from the tablet. The fury was gone, replaced by something far more terrifying, a cold, dead calm. He looked from the tablet to Zara, his eyes empty. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet it was almost a whisper, but it echoed in the vast room like a gunshot. He promised them you, Zara. He promised them my wife. Sweethearts, if this story touched your heart even a little, don't leave me hanging. I'd be over the moon if you could like, share, and subscribe to Afrokorean cinema. Your love keeps these stories alive. Thank you for staying till the end, and I can't wait to share the next journey with you.